Chapter 176 The Gate of Goffin 3. The current leader of that faction is Chief Kadum. Chiron recalled the two kinds of gazes he had felt at the banquet. The elders who welcomed the unlocker were likely pro-angel, while those who looked at him coldly were likely anti-angel. Under that framework, Kadum's father Hashid and even Mahatu belonged to the anti-angel faction. Chief Kadum is destroying the Kurgon tribe. It's ironic for someone like me who smuggles loop to say this, but entrusting the tribe's fate to the messenger of God is a terrible idea. I come from anti-angel blood myself. I was supposed to be a slave. You've probably heard about the human tourism scandal caused by the Gallian autonomous government. Most of the victims were from our faction. My own mother was kidnapped by an outsider. Amy decided to let go of her lingering resentment toward Mahatu. If her parents had suffered like that, she too might harbor hatred toward outsiders. 100 years ago, our tribe was shaken by the intrusion of civilization. When the Gallian government began hunting humans, the anti-angel faction erupted in fury. A third civil war seemed imminent, and destruction felt inevitable. But one person turned it all around. Someone who ended the war by designing the chambers of achievement and sacrifice to block reckless journeys to heaven. That person was Nero. Sharon recalled Nero. Her eyes had once seemed unstable and intense, but before entering her time-space, she had been deeply human. Even now, there's still some conflict, but things are much better thanks to Miro. Without her, I'd probably still be a slave. Where is Miro now? Sharon asked. He already knew she was in the intermediate dimension of Istas, but sometimes it felt like she could be anywhere. After designing the chambers, Miro entered Gurpin's gate. I wasn't there, but I heard she said she was going to meet Gurpin. Amy looked confused. Wait, wasn't Gurpin someone who lived 250 years ago? How could she meet him? I don't know either, but that's what the records say. Sharon thought it was plausible. The fact that Gurpin's gate existed meant he had mastered scale magic as an unlocker. If Miro's specialty was spatial magic, maybe Gurpin's was time. Armin, the eternal contemplator, came to mind. He had spent over a century meditating using stop magic. It wasn't unthinkable that Gurpin might still exist somehow. Even the great wizard Arcane had lived 150 years, using only biological enhancements. Canis didn't care much about Mira herself, but the chambers she built were crucial clues for reaching the heaven. Then, where are the others who passed through Mira's spacetime? Canis asked. Now that Sharon is here, shouldn't they go together? Sharon was also curious. If those who had proven themselves were still here, they might provide more answers. Technically, the decision to bring companions is up to the messenger of God, Mahatu replied, but currently there's no one left. The last group departed for heaven 2 years ago. They never returned. That was a shock. People were going to heaven more frequently than expected. Kadum likely hid this fact because he was a pro-angel. He wanted more people to reach heaven. Amy raised another question. Don't all Kargons believe in lore? Then how could an anti-angel faction even form? I'm part of that faction, but even I don't know how the first civil war began. Most records were destroyed in a volcanic eruption 500 years ago. We call it the Lost Record. Honestly, we're not even sure if the volcano was caused by an angel's power. It's just speculation. Mahato's words weighed heavily on them. Even if there was a way to return from heaven, it wasn't something to take lightly. No one knew what awaited them. Still, if you choose to go, I won't stop you. I couldn't even if I wanted to. But know this. Everyone who's passed Miro's test before was stronger than me, and none of them have come back. He wasn't saying it outright, but the implication was clear. Those stronger than Sharon's team had gone to heaven and vanished. The group fell silent, lost in thought. Mahatu bowed his head. I respect your resolve, Sharon. You didn't come here for worldly gains. I felt I owed you the truth. Whatever choice you make, I won't interfere, but I hope you choose wisely. Thank you. We've learned a lot, Sharon replied. Once Mahato left, silence returned. Heaven still held allure, but no one tried to sway Sharon. This was his choice alone, and everyone else would follow. I wonder how much did Headmaster Alphaeus know? Sharon thought of him. If he knew Sharon was an unlocker, why did he tell him about the Kurgan ruins? Maybe he knew at least what we know. Miro was his student, right? He must have heard something about her. Then why did he allow this? What if this situation is something even he didn't foresee? What should I do then? Good point, Canis replied. Maybe he thought you wouldn't go to heaven. I think the same in his position. Then he threw in a twist, but I was the variable. Alphaeus couldn't have predicted Canis. Even if he had, he probably wouldn't imagine they'd find a way back. Now it all came down to a choice. At least they knew there was an exit. If the other world wasn't a toxic wasteland, they wouldn't die on arrival. In that light, not trying at all felt foolish. But if something unexpected went wrong, they might lose their only chance to return. Sharon couldn't sleep all night. The next morning, Sharon and the others went down to the underground temple. Chief Kadum led the way, with Hashid and Mahatu behind him. Amy guessed this was the secret space within the ruins that Spirit Zone couldn't detect. At the lowest level, a straight corridor showed signs of a volcanic blast. Gemstones embedded in the wall lit the way. They entered through an iron door into a wide chamber. Priests lined the walls, and a solitary stone gate stood in the center. It wasn't connected to anything, but its presence made heaven feel undeniably real. They had arrived at Gurpin's Gate, the entrance to heaven rebuilt by Unlocker MacLean Gurpin 250 years ago. A red orb was embedded in it, and a vertical slit ran through its center. Before coming, Sharon had made a pact with Kadum. It was simple. Go to the angelic archive, Inglis, and deliver Kadum's will to heaven. An archive of angels. Kadum made it sound easy, but Sharon couldn't imagine how that would be anything but impossible. He looked at his friends. Maybe they could come back, or maybe not, but he had made his choice. Amy nodded, and Sharon placed his hand on the orb. As he took a deep breath and activated immortal function, a white flash burst from the orb. Ooh, even Mahato from the anti-angel faction dropped to his knees and shouted praises to Lar. Sharon focused his power. This wasn't just an ordinary stone wall. The scratches on it began glowing red, revealing ancient magical inscriptions. The wall began disintegrating, cube by cube, breaking down into dust, then vanishing into light. The white light surged out and swallowed Sharon. Gurpin's gate has opened. Praise the angel, the priests cried, but Sharon couldn't hear them. All he could hear was the pounding of his heart. For the first time he felt fear. Just one step, but it felt like an eternal distance. A warm, strong hand touched his shoulder. It was Rian. That's right, he wasn't alone. Tess' insight, Amy's brilliance, Connie's defense, Aaron's resilience. Even Harvest was now a trusted ally. This was a great party. Sharon stepped into the gate. As they left the altar, the white light reformed into gray particles, reassembling the wall. The magical runes faded. The stone wall stood restored. No one was left behind. Silence returned. The forest of the profane. 1. Outskirts of heaven, purgatory. Sharon clenched his jaw as brilliant lights streaked around them. What awaited at the end? Was there even an end? Even closing his eyes didn't block the chaotic flashes. It felt like being shot out of a cannon. Everyone hoped this wasn't a world of sulfur and flames. The first impression wasn't bad. The air was fresh and cool. But once they realized where they were, they screamed. How foolish to assume they'd exit at ground level just because the gate had been on the ground. They were high above the clouds, high enough to see the ends of the ocean. Teleportation spells failed. Perhaps they were still under Gurpin's influence, and they plummeted even faster than freefall. The ocean gave way to a vast forest. From afar, Sharon saw a city at the center of the forest, the same one he had seen in Mira's dimension. A castle surrounded by two concentric circles, split into six pie-like segments. Ladybug-like machines buzzed in the air, reminding him vaguely of human brains. As they descended, the city vanished beneath the canopy. They crashed through the forest. Just before hitting the ground, they were released from the magic. They survived. End of chapter 176. Chapter 177. The Forest of the Profane, Part 2. The group looked around. Tall trees with long leaves covered the sky. From above, the canopy looked completely sealed, yet thin airs of light still found their way through, illuminating the forest below. Moss and mushrooms grew in the shade, and the ground felt damp and moisture. Still, it didn't feel like the world they came from. What made it strange was the size of the rocks. You can usually tell how old a place is by how much its rocks have eroded. But here, the rocks came in all sizes, tiny pebbles to boulders as big as houses. That shouldn't happen naturally unless someone had moved them here. Maybe the material is different from our world, Kenny suggested. What if these rocks are so durable they don't erode over time? That made sense. Ancient artifacts in their worlds were made from unknown minerals. If this place was truly divine, the rocks could have lasted forever, proof of its age. So, are we in heaven now? Someone asked. Let's check if our spirit zone works first, said Amy. Each of them tested their magic playfully. Everything worked fine. Then this is heaven, right? Great sightseeing. Can we go home now? Joked Tess. Everyone stared at her, embarrassed. She waved her hand. Haha, just kidding. Honestly, I was seriously considering it, Rhea replied, revealing the tension everyone was feeling. They hadn't moved a single step since arriving, clearly hesitant. Sharon finally took a small but bold step forward. Let's move. Whether we fell from the sky or warped space, we saw a city in the distance. If we walk that way, we might find it. At least it means there's some form of civilization. And where's their civilization? There are rules. Even if those rules might not match their own, it was better than spending the night in this mysterious forest. But how do we find the city? We don't know which direction it's in, someone asked. I can do it, Amy said, her eyes glowing red. Using her perfect memory, she pointed in the direction Rian was facing. Amy had a natural inner compass, like a magnet. She could orient herself no matter where she was, even in a warped space like this. As they followed Amy, they listened carefully to their surroundings. They heard insects and birds, but strangely, they couldn't see any of them. That was when the group froze. They heard something moving through the grass. Tess, always alert, drew her sword. Rian stood beside her, gripping his great sword. What is it, Tess? I don't know. Something's coming. Are you sure it's someone, not something? Amy asked nervously. Tess didn't answer. The breathing sounded human, but she couldn't be certain. Then came the sound, rustling leaves, closer and faster. Everyone entered their spirit zones. Rian prepared to strike as soon as whatever it was showed itself. But nothing appeared, only noise. Rian, fall back, Tess said, her voice shaking. She realized the sound wasn't as close as it seemed. That meant boom, boom. The ground shook. Finally something emerged from the forest. Whoa, what is that? Sharon looked up as far as his neck would bend. A giant, over 8 meters tall, barely clothed, except for some scraps of cloth. A long beard reached his chest, his face full of deep wrinkles, yet his body looked young and strong. Tess checked between its legs, flat. No visible genitals, The face looked male, but it wasn't clear. We have a really bad situation, Irene said nervously. Worse than this? Tess asked. I don't know what's worse, but I've never seen anything like this. Sharon turned to Irene. She had the power to sense emotions, but I can't read its feelings, she said. It's like everything's mixed up. Anger, laughter, sadness. I can't make sense of it. Canis was stunned. Even his summoned spirit harvest looked confused. Irene can't read its emotions? Impossible. Her ability could understand all living beings. If the giant was blocking it, like some do magically, there would still be signs, but there was nothing. Then the giant spoke. Those who enter purgatory, those who deny the gods, they couldn't understand the language, not even Ari. I don't know what he's saying. I can't translate it, she admitted. No one could help. Telepathy didn't work either. She was blind, so its thoughts, and even its facial expressions. Canis, do you think it's hostile? Seems like it, he replied grimly. They had relied on Irene to guide them safely. Without her, they were nearly blind in this unknown world. Irene, what should we do? Amy asked. What else? Run! Irene sprinted. Amy hesitated, shocked. Canis chased after Irene, and everyone began to retreat. Amy turned back. The giant had uprooted a tree and was chasing them. Gra! Its roar was deafening. Amy barely dodged the tree root that nearly hit her. He's too big to keep chasing. Just run for now, someone yelled. You could have told me that sooner, Amy shouted. She caught up with Irene. She had narrowly escaped a fatal blow. Sorry, I didn't expect this either, Irene cried. No one blamed her, but it was clear they were in trouble. The sound of stomping grew louder. Sharon looked back. The giant wasn't slow. That had been a mistake to assume. Sharon gave the order. Should we teleport away? Tess asked through Irene's mental channel. Too risky. We don't know what's out there. What if it's worse than here? But we can't just keep running. I can't even focus on what's around me anymore. Yeah, okay, then we fight. Let's take down the giant first. With that decision, Ryan and Tess turned and charged. Amy and Canis took their positions beside Sharon. Aaron stayed at the back to support. Ryan, as the frontline warrior, attacked first. Fighting an 8-meter tall enemy was unpredictable. He aimed for the Achilles tendon, the only reachable weak point. But as he swung, the giant slammed its tree-trunk weapon down. The two weapons collided, and Ryan's sword was shattered. The giant's strength was unbelievable. Ryan flew 3 meters from the impact, barely landing safely. His arm trembled, but he got back into position. This strength, it's impossible. It defies physics. A creature that size should collapse under its own weight. Yet the giant moved like a predator. Heretics shall be punished. It threw a broken tree at Tess. As the tree hit the ground, Tess leaped into the air. The giant followed through with a punch. She couldn't dodge until she suddenly jumped forward, mid-air, landing on its fist. She was using external gravity magic. Running up its arm, she slashed its left eye and jumped down. Now's your chance. Sharon fired his photon cannon. A huge beam of light struck the giant's stomach. Its massive body bent from the impact, feet lifting off the ground. They thought it was over, but the giant landed and stood back up. Everyone was speechless. He just tanked a photon cannon? That's crazy. The magic had once reached a power level of 5,000, enough to destroy iron gates. A living creature surviving it was absurd. The giant's face twisted in pain. Amy's fireball hit him in the face, burning hair and skin. But as the fire cleared, they saw something even more terrifying. New skin was regenerating underneath. Tess muttered in disbelief. That's schema. How can a giant use schema? End of chapter 177. Chapter 178. Forest of the Profane. 3. Irene unleashed her shadow power. The giant was wounded. This was her chance to see if it could actually work. Her shadow magic extended like tree branches, creeping into the giant's shadow and wrapping around its ankles like vines. Then Irene cast Mental Shock, spell that attacks the mind. If telepathy is like a thief sneaking into your mind, then mental shock is like a robber kicking down the door. It couldn't trigger deep trauma, but it could definitely induce phobias and fear. The true strength of mental shock was that it could be followed up with mind control, one of arcane magic's most powerful tools. But mind control is extremely hard to pull off. To fully control someone, the caster needs 20 times the target's mental strength. In short, you can't control someone stronger than you. But sometimes strategy and timing make the impossible possible. Like when mental shock works. If they could take control of the giant, the forest wouldn't be a threat anymore. Even Canis, knowing this, didn't interrupt. He watched quietly to see what would happen. It failed. The giant, now with its face on fire, charged at them more ferociously than ever. Irene bit her lip. Telepathy, mental shock, mind control. None of the three legendary mental spells worked. It was her first time feeling so powerless. Her emotions burned inside her. Why? Isn't it working? Isn't it just a big human? Irene, get back! Canis shielded her and cast Shadow Wall. A massive wall of shadow rose just as the giant's fist slammed into it, scattering the dark wall like dust. The punch had overpowered the wall's absorption limits, but even the giant seemed to lose momentum and couldn't push forward. Meanwhile, Harvest slashed the giant's wrist, aiming for what would be veins in a human. His guess was right. The creature had human-like anatomy, but blood burst out like a fountain. But the wound quickly healed, and the giant went even more berserk. This thing's insanely strong. I can't believe a creature like this exists. Chiron used teleportation to draw the giant's attention. Then Rian sliced its heel like he was filleting meat. Canis tried again with shadow power. His shadow transformed into serrated blades, but even then, he couldn't cut through the giant's muscles. All he could do was hold it in place. Unbelievable strength. Hurry, do something. Amy's flame strike bombarded the giant's face, but adding fire to something already burning didn't help. Even with the wind boosting it, the spell wasn't stronger than photon cannon. Chiron began compressing photons. Everyone expected a photon cannon, but it was taking longer to cast than usual. Canis noticed the lights strange, soft wobble, and snapped. What the hell are you doing? Focus. No, wait, Irene said. He's changing the shape of the photons. Sharon wasn't trying to blast it with force. He was trying to cut it. If brute strength and heat didn't work, maybe sharpness would. It was the right call for the situation, but Canis wasn't sure if it was even possible. Changing the form of light? That was way outside the norm. Sharon could feel it too. Suppressing and reshaping photons was unbelievably difficult. Redirecting the compression force helped a bit, but it drained him mentally. He groaned through clenched teeth as he pushed his focus to the limit. The light flattened, turning into a disk. The disk-shaped photon cannon flew toward the giant. The giant tore through the shadow buildings and twisted its body, but the blade of light sliced its side open, creating a deep wound. Blood gushed out like a waterfall. It was a critical hit. Everyone realized it and surged forward. They stabbed with sabers, bashed with great swords, burned it with fire, and soothed it with shadow magic. Finally, the giant collapsed backward. The attacks continued, but it felt like trying to butcher a dragon with pocket knives. Even one strand of its muscle was tougher than steel. Gasping for breath, Amy said, "Ha, ha, it's dead, right? It's gotta be, right? Probably should we hit it again, just in case?" Tess shivered. "No way, I can't. There's a limit to how brutal we can be. I tried cutting its head off with shadow magic, but it wouldn't budge. What if we just skinned it instead?" Canny said. That comment was the last straw. Everyone stepped back, looking pale. The giant wasn't moving, and Sharon's wound wasn't healing, so they left it be. Tess gave Sharon a thumbs up. "Nice work, Sharon. Another new spell, huh? I get lucky. If the giant had touched that, would have been it. Just thinking about it makes me shiver." Canis was annoyed. Photon cannon was supposed to be a blunt force spell. Changing its shape into a cutting weapon, The idea was brilliant, but as a dark mage, he couldn't help but feel overshadowed. Good thing it worked, but it was a gamble. In a team, one person's mental strength affects everyone. If you'd failed, you would have been out of the fight, and that would have put the whole group at risk. I know it didn't go as smoothly as I hoped either. Canis turned away, snorting. He didn't like it, but he had to admit Sharon's insight at that moment had been impressive. Irene seemed to agree. Watching Sharon's rest, she said, "He's always been good at thinking outside the box. A risky move, but a high reward one, knowing what to give up and what to keep in pursuit of victory. It was a rare kind of insight. If he'd made just one or two wrong choices, they wouldn't have survived. He's always been quick on his feet," Canis muttered. He was part of the team now, and denying Sharon's talent was just pride. Guru, the giant groaned. Everyone's hearts dropped. It wasn't standing up yet, but its fingers were twitching. They didn't need to discuss it. They just ran into the forest. Whatever heaven was, one thing was clear. They weren't going to fight that giant again. They reached a rocky area with lots of shadows, a perfect place for Canis and Arin, whose dark magic grew stronger in the dark. Sharon's magic worked anywhere, but for the others, the darkness was a huge advantage. This place is safe. Worst case, I can escape using dark port. But you can't teleport multiple people with dark port, right? Dark magic didn't have shared transfer mechanics like photonization spells. Only the dark mage could travel through shadows. Kenny shrugged. Still, it helps. I can at least lure enemies away by myself. As Tess took the next turn with the water canteen, she said, "A giant using schema. This place is insane, and Irene's mental magic didn't work on it." "That's terrifying. Sorry, I wasn't any help," Irene said quietly. "No, it's fine. I couldn't handle that thing either. The important part is we beat it together. Also, heaven doesn't seem so scary anymore." "Ha ha ha." Tess laughed, but the mages looked uneasy. Unlike swordsmen who thrive on improvising, mages rely on precise planning and control. Unexpected situations made them anxious. Sharon's new spell, reshaping light, was no was not part of their original strategy. They knew too many unknowns could lead to disaster, so even though they won, they didn't feel like celebrating. We weren't fully in control during that fight. I hate to bring this up, but maybe we should consider turning back. What does everyone think? Sharon broke the silence. Amy replied, "I think it went well, considering it was our first time. We shouldn't ignore the fact that we won. Plus, Sharon found a new solution, and that could help in future battles." She made a good point. Canis, of course, wanted to keep going, but he wasn't foolish enough to let pride cloud his judgment. "It's not that simple. Sharon probably won't use that spell again, right?" "Right, it's too risky. It takes too long and it's efficient and isn't efficient. If I'd only use it in extreme cases. Your idea made sense. If photons can carry mass, they can act like matter. And that means they can change shape, right?" Canis understood because reshaping was a core idea in dark magic. It was his specialty. "But it's a bad match for you. You're not built for mental sculpting. That's a dark magic trait. We use modeling instead of structured casting, like my saw blade shadows or Erin's vines." Irene demonstrated her magic. Her shadow grew into a detailed apple tree, complete with lifelike form and size. Sharon admired it, and Irene smiled. "Dark mages don't use traditional casting circles. We call this modeling. Elements like ice and darkness are easy to shape, but fire and light are too volatile. It's much harder to model them." Amy agreed. "That's true. I can't control the shape of fire. That's why I mix it with wind magic." "Exactly. And light is even worse. Technically, modeling light isn't possible. You can add light to another element, but not the other way around. Sharon only managed it because he used a divine particle. But it's a special case. Even then, it's not practical for combat." Sharon sighed. "Then how are we supposed to fight more giants? Maybe a laser could work, but they move too fast for that to be reliable. Lasers could destroy anything, no matter how tough, but charging them took time, which made them ineffective against fast enemies. Thankfully, the giant hadn't known what a laser was. Otherwise, last time could have ended very differently. The problem is, we've only seen one giant. How strong are they in this world, really? If we knew that, we could plan better. End of chapter 178. Chapter 179. Chapter 3. Forest of the Profane. 4. Sharon snapped his fingers at Rian's insight. That's it, let's think this through. If there are living creatures, that means there's a food chain, and it usually forms a pyramid, right? If we isolate just the predators and chart their distribution, wouldn't it look something like this? Sharon drew a sharply curved pyramid, like the silhouette of a woman's body. It showed a small number of mutant predators placed between lower middle and top tier predators. Since it only included carnivores, the bottom and middle layers were evenly distributed. What's this mutant predator? Some predators don't hunt the usual way. They use traps or rely on intelligence to feed, like monkeys in our world. I see. Then where would the giants fall on this pyramid? Well, gravity and the presence of air mean they probably aren't too biologically different from us. Assuming that, they'd be somewhere between mid-level and top-tier predators. Wait, the giants are considered mutant predators, even though they're so strong? They could be top tier. That would be better for us, but their combat style is too primitive. Take cats, for example. They have refined hunting methods, but ripping out a tree and swinging it around, that's not exactly efficient. That's why I labeled them mutant predators. Tess tilted her head. Couldn't they be mutants between the low and mid tier predators? That would mean most predators in this forest are stronger than them. That's a big problem. I doubt that, Sharon said. They seem to use language. Even a little intelligence would put them above the lower levels. Canis added, then the first giant we met would be in the top 30% of predators. There's a chance it's from another category, but statistically that sounds about right. Exactly, and they probably aren't that numerous, Sharon said. If we go by feel, I'd say there's less than 10% chance we'll meet anything stronger. Amy summed it up. Then we're fine, right? There are six of us. We can take them down. No one's hurt. Sharon analyzed the situation carefully. Amy had a point. It sounded positive, but when life is on the line, probabilities become illusions. They hadn't even been in heaven for an hour, and yet the thought of turning back didn't cross their minds. It was irrational, and they all probably knew it. But none of them wanted to retreat now, not even in the face of greater danger. All right, let's at least make it to the city wall. I don't want to give up here either. As they prepared to leave, a loud explosion echoed through the forest. Tess picked up on a woman's voice. It might be an even bigger threat than the giant, yet if it really was a woman, she had intelligence. The information they could gather from her might be invaluable. They looked at each other, nodded silently, and dashed into the forest. Scree, kick, kick, a six-legged creature called a poison horn let out a harsh screech. This crustacean-like beast walked on six sharp legs, shaped like triangular spikes. Its lavender body was encased in a hard shell, and a single huge eye sat in the center of its face. A long horn jutted from its forehead, tougher and longer than that of a unicorn. Rena, drive it this way. Got it. Be careful, sis. Kanya and Rena had it surrounded. Kanya at the front, Rena behind. Kanya had long black hair down her waist. Her younger sister Rena had large pretty eyes. They were both Mecha, citizens of heaven. Their sharp jaws, small noses, and thin lips made them look eternally youthful. They were 17 and 14 years old, but it was hard to tell who was older just by looking at them. Rena attacked from behind, swinging a complex sword whose blade was crisscrossed with fine lines. As she struck the photon's horn back, a shockwave exploded, and shell fragments flew everywhere. It was already the third blow. Screeching, the creature tried to escape sideways, but Rena followed its blind spot and struck again. Though its wide-angle eye could see almost 330 degrees, Rena stayed within its 30-degree blind spot and attacked. When the beast charged in desperation, Kanya raised a kite shield attached to her wrist. Though it looked like a toy, it projected a massive energy shield when the horn struck it, pushing the creature back. Flipped on its back, the poison horn flailed like a beetle. It staggered to its feet, still wobbling from the impact. Kanya raised a weapon called an arc, a metal, bow-shaped device without a string, pulling a handle. A red beam shot out from both ends, triangulating on the target. She aimed the red dot at the creature's eye. Though it tried to dodge, she adjusted with it, waiting. As Rena disappeared into its blind spot again, the panicked beast charged Kanya. She released the handle. A tiny projectile shot out from the arc and burrowed into its eye, then exploded inside. The beast trembled and collapsed, shrieking in pain. Rena finished it off, stabbing into the cracked shell with a burst. The creature jolted and then went still. Kanya lowered her arc and wiped the sweat from her brow. Phew, that one was tough, huh? Yeah, are you okay, sis? I'm fine, but something's weird. Why did a poison horn show up here? It's far from its usual habitat. Could we be lost? No way, the drone's showing the right direction. Maybe the forest laws have changed. Let's get out of here. Still, we should check for elixirs just in case. Rena climbed onto the corpse, opened its shell, and struck her head inside the gooey, melted organs. Despite the grossness, she boldly stared around until her eyes lit up. Found it, sis. I got it. She held up a glowing red orb. Red elixir. Woohoo! Thanks, Poisonhorn. Kanya smiled as her little sister jumped around excitedly. Most creatures in purgatory grow elixirs in their bodies. They're useless to divine citizens, but in purgatory, they're invaluable. Lucky us. Now let's move. Just as Kanya returned to Big Sister mode, she felt a chill run down her spine. She turned around and saw dozens of eyes gleaming with murderous intent. More poison horns emerged, tapping the rocky ground with sharp legs. 7 of them. Rena, get over here. Kanya pulled her sister close and took a battle stance, but confusion swirled in her mind. Poison horns never travel in packs, and they definitely don't roam this far from their habitat. Damn, I get careless. I should have kept checking the drone. Even though purgatory, called hell outside heaven, was a chaotic place, divine law still applied. Monsters may lack reason, but laws act like instincts for them. If they were behaving differently, something must have triggered it nearby. Of all times, forest laws rarely change, and divine citizens almost never venture into purgatory. The fact that 2 rare events happened at once made her uneasy. Sis, what do we do? There's too many of them. One mecha could take down one poison horn, but if there were two, you need at least 5 mecha to handle them. Mechas were weak individually but powerful in coordinated groups, but now it was just the 2 of them. Kanya gritted her teeth. Even with the arc, 7 poison horns was too much. What the hell was going on in this forest? They had spent a whole year charting safe routes to avoid monsters only for everything to fall apart. Scree, kick, kick. The poison horns brandished their horns. The sisters stood back to back, defending each other. One lunged at Rena. She blocked it with her shield, Exed, and its rebound effect threw the beast back. Kanya switched positions and fired the arc. The shot struck the shell, causing an explosion. The rest charged. Hide behind me, Rena blocked with Exed. Each impact sounded like thunder. She also used her shockwave weapon, Signa, but it was nearly useless unless she attacked from a blind spot. Exed's rebound limit was nearing. Once breached, the shield stopped working, just a toy. All 7 poison horns surrounded them. With nowhere left to run, the sisters embraced and closed their eyes. They feared not death, but the pain before death. Poison horns stabbed their prey and stuck out their organs while still alive. Kanya considered using Rena's Signa to kill her quickly before that could happen. Then, flash! A brilliant light descended from the sky. They saw the back of a blond boy dressed in strange clothing not from this world. It was Sharon. As he landed, he unleashed a blast technique. A dome of light pushed out from him, repelling all the poison horns in a 3 to 5 meter radius. The ground caved in from the impact. The sisters collapsed, stunned, staring at him. No one lived in the forest of the tainted. To meet a human here, it felt like a miracle. Are you okay? Sharon asked, smiling. In this forsaken place, the appearance of a fellow human brought a joy greater than nostalgia. Whatever the sisters were, Sharon was clearly their ally. While the monsters were their enemies, Kenya's guard went up, but Rena, still in her teens, blushed. He's handsome. Is he a Nor? He's handsome. Is he a Nor? While the sisters stood in awe, Sharon's team was already battling the other monsters. Rian and Tess each took one on. Rian, after a single clash, felt reassured. These creatures were strong, but no worse than the monsters he fought in his own world. He grabbed the horn of his foe and flipped it over, pinning it by driving his sword into its guts. End of chapter 179. Chapter 180. The Forest of the Tainted Ones, Part 5. Tess' battle was finally coming to an end. Her saber wasn't strong enough to break the hard shell of the monster, but it was perfect for striking between the gaps. She aimed carefully, slowing the creature down, then struck its one eye with her saber. Twisting the blade, she brought it to the ground in defeat. As the fight dragged on, Amy created a wall of fire around them. Ideally, the wild monsters would retreat, but one of them unexpectedly charged through the flames. The large harvest grabbed it and broke its spine. Irene was relieved to see her mind control magic was working. When she targeted four of the monsters, two of them started trembling. Soon they turned on their own kind and began attacking. With the monsters fighting among themselves, the group didn't need to lift a finger. Lirian and Tess finished off the remaining enemies and returned to Sharon, putting away their weapons. When Amy dropped the firewall, they saw the chaos inside, horns, legs, and jaws clashing violently. Because the numbers were even, it all depended on Irene's control. At first, she struggled with unfamiliar creatures, but she quickly adapted, using their long horns for one-on-one tactics. Watching the monsters kill their own kind made everyone shiver. For Kanya and Rena, it was especially disturbing. These creatures were supposed to follow the law of the forest, and now they were killing their own. Clearly, today was not a normal day in the forest of the Tainted Ones. After winning the battle, Irene exhaled deeply. Mind control drained her energy continuously, and when she forced them to fight, she also felt their fear and resistance, making her mentality exhausted. The two controlled monsters turned to look at Sharon, Kenya, and Rena, quickly stepped back, but the beasts bowed in submission. Irene now had a problem. What should she do with the two monsters? Her success rate with mind control was a great strength, but also a weakness. It meant she could feel her target's emotions too clearly, which was painful. All mental magic users eventually faced this. The more you connect, the more it hurts. She hesitated, even if they were monsters. Killing creatures that had fought by her side felt cruel. Tess, known for her gentle heart, said what Irene was probably thinking. Can't we just keep them? Even two would be really helpful. No, Amy replied. We can't afford to waste Irene's energy on this. We now know mind control works. She should focus on that. She'd also have to keep that mental link open all the time. What if we just let him go? They'd probably come back to attack us. Worse, they might bring others. Then we have to kill them. What if we make them fight each other? That suggestion made Irene bite her lip. It was different from earlier. Now her emotions were mixed with guilt and sympathy. Rian stepped in, gripping his sword. Then I'll do it. Just hold them still. But Canis shook his head. No, Irene needs to do this herself. If she wants to grow stronger as a mental mage, she can't avoid hard decisions like this forever. Even Irene's rare talent with mind control would hit a wall eventually. She had to overcome moments like this to move forward. Canis wanted Irene to become strong, strong enough to never be taken away again. Irene, remember when you were taken out to the Magic Association? We promised we'd grow stronger. Our master is gone. It's up to us now. This world is not kind to those who hesitate. Irene closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Canis was right. Would she rely on her powers or master them? She had to face it, no matter how painful. She led the monsters to the forest's edge and commanded them to stab each other in the eyes with their horns. They collapsed face to face. Though still alive, they could no longer move. It was the only way to make sure they wouldn't return. Irene forced a smile. Harvest, watching from a distance, remembered the girl once trapped behind glass. People still said she was too soft to be a real mage, but compared to before, she had changed. She's strong but too kind. Harvest said she connects with others too easily. Arkin always said that was her biggest flaw. But she's changing, Canis replied. She'll be fine. Sharon, feeling Arin's sadness, felt reassured by their conversation. Arin had chosen a tough path. But she wasn't alone. Sharon turned to Kanya and Rena, trying to ease the tension. But the women looked shocked. People, one whispered. Yes, actual people with swords and shields. I missed that. Talking to three pulling giants was driving me crazy. Their strange words made Kanya push her sister behind her. What are you saying? Who are you people? Irene used her spirit zone to connect minds. She translated Kanya's thoughts to the others. Sharon spoke carefully. We're from another place. But Kanya stopped him with a glare. The moment she understood their words, her suspicion deepened. Their mouths didn't match the words she was hearing. What did you do? Is this magic? Are you from the North? The North? What's that? Kanya didn't answer. Instead, she raised her arm and the flying drone landed on it, turning into a glove-like gadget. Language scan. The glove lit up. Say something again. Like what? That was enough. Kanya checked the device. No data. Unable to translate. Realizing this, she pulled out a weapon called the Arc and aimed it at Sharon's head. Hey, what are you doing? Sharon had seen how powerful the Arc was. Being threatened like this without understanding why was shocking. Rena, they're not citizens. They're intruders. We have to fight. But they saved our lives. I get it now. The monsters are here because of them. They broke the forest law. Renner hesitated but eventually drew her weapon too. Better start talking if you don't want your head blown off. What did you do in this forest? Who are you? But how could Sharon explain? Frustrated, he yelled. We are human too. How can I believe that? You don't speak our language, and you're not heretics either. But we can talk now, right? That should count for something. Kanya frowned. Strangely enough, Cheryl made sense. If we can talk, then let's talk. There has to be a better way than pointing weapons. Peace in the forest of the tainted ones. You're definitely suspicious. The forest of the tainted ones? Is that what this place is called? Irene confirmed it, and silence fell. They stood in a tense standoff. Sharon could easily overpower Kanya, but he didn't want to fight. They could talk. She just needed to lower her guard. Maybe she could explain this strange world. Then Rena looked up. A drone patrolling above projected a vision into her eyes. More than 20 of the same monsters were heading their way. Sis, trouble, more monsters. Kanya snapped back to focus. The forest law was already broken. Staying any longer would be suicide. The strangers didn't seem eager to fight, and considering their strength, they could have attacked already if they wanted. Come with us. Let's get out of here first, then talk. She turned her gauntlet back into the bug and sent it flying. After checking the monster's location, she led them into the forest. Sharon and his team followed silently. Amy whispered that they were heading away from the city. Chapter 4. The Law Reversed. Part 1. Kanya led them into a valley with jungle and rocky cliffs. The area was surrounded by steep walls, with only the sky visible. As they walked, everyone introduced themselves. Kanya still didn't trust them, but she accepted that they didn't want a fight. This is the Serpent Spiral Valley. The law here is different, so we should be safe. The biggest danger was Sharon getting hit by that crazy weapon. Rian joked, and Kanya frowned. She seemed more annoyed than angry. Perhaps she was still upset about what had happened in the forest. Guessing that Sharon was their leader, she pointed at him. Who are you people? You're really from another world? It's the truth, believe it or not. It's the only way to explain it. Now it's your turn. What kind of world is this? And what was that giant thing we saw earlier? Giant? Did you say giant? Yeah. You killed it? No, we didn't. It's more like before Sharon could explain, Kanya grabbed his collar and shouted, You idiot, giants are the enforcers of the forest's law. That's why the monsters are out of control. It's your fault. Amy shoved her off. They'd kept come to get information, but she wouldn't let anyone touch her friends. I said we didn't kill it. It attacked us first. Of course it did. We broke the law. No humans are allowed in that forest. Sharon stepped between them. Even if you say that, we don't know what any of it means. Understand? We really are from somewhere else. Kanye was stunned. His words made no sense, but maybe that's why they had to be true. You're really from another world? We've been saying that this whole time. No, I mean, her face changed. She remembered the story from long ago. A people from a land ruled by heaven. They were descendants of the gods, but could no longer feel the divine. They lived short, painful lives, unable to escape mortality.